Do we have any? None? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. Welcome to the City Council special meeting for Tuesday, August 20th, 2019. Calling to order at 6 p.m. All are present on council. And if you would, please stand and join me in a pledge. Thank you, everyone. Item number 4, citizens' comment period. We have nobody that has signed up for that citizens' comment period. I will say to the citizens that are here that we will have a public hearing as well that you don't have to have signed up for, and we'll have citizens' comments at the end. So it doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity to speak, but nobody's signed up for number 4. So moving on to item number 5. Excuse me, item number 5. Following items are up for discussion, and we got 5A, the 2019 tax rate. So this is the first of 2 public hearings. We did discuss the tax rate at our city council meeting, our August city council meeting. And the proposed tax rate for 2019 is 321106 versus 323146. Have this up on the board. And just a very quick review. Property values went way up. You can see from 2018 to 2019, the adjusted taxable values went up as well by quite a bit. So that, along with the debt rate going down, those are actually competing against each other when it comes to what we are determining is our needed tax rate. To explain the debt rate going down, very simply, we haven't incurred any debt lately, and we've been paying on the debt. When we went through the whole budget process, we talked about how low our debt is for a municipality in Texas, and that we can be proud of how low it is, much lower than most municipalities. And we're in a very good financial situation regarding debt. But since it's going down, you see that the debt rate went from 0.101 to 0.095. The expenses, of course, for running the city have gone up, and we went through the budget. So with the goal of keeping a stable tax rate, but protecting the city from lower cap rates in the future, which will go from 8% to 3.5%. So we needed to keep that in mind as well as we're looking at what we're going to do for our tax rate. With all of that put together, what we came up with is to pay the bills of the budget that has been approved and been through the process already. What we are looking at doing is going with the 0.321106, which is actually, for overall tax, a decrease of 0.00204. Now, the average person is going to say, yeah, it's a decrease, but I'm paying more in taxes to the city, and they probably will, because the average house in Garden Ridge in 2018 was $454,000. The average house in Garden Ridge in 2019 is $488,000. So $36,000 increase in value equates to a $102 increase in taxes for the city, even though the rate has gone down by 0.00204. So that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that home value, if your home value happened to stay the same, and you were at the average of 454, you'd be paying $9 less in tax because of the slight decrease in the tax rate. Another way some people will look at it is $100,000. If you had a $100,000 house and it stayed $100,000, you'd be paying a couple dollars, literally $2 less. Remember, we also talked about the $19 million in dispute, which our actuary says will not have a whole lot of effect, but I still contend it will have some effect. He says, and for those of you just listening and not seeing the picture, he said it's a small change, but it is nevertheless a change. So bottom line, the taxes paid on the overall, on an average home, if you have that average home, will go up about $101. That is for City of Garden Ridge. The taxes for a lot of the other things are going to be going up. I know that county taxes will be going up and everything else, but clearly we have no say in that. So this is the first opportunity for us to have a public hearing on this. And before I open up the public hearing, I'd like to start over on the left side and see if anyone in council has any comments or questions about this second time that you've seen this tax rate. Starting left side, ma'am.
No, sir.
Sir? No, sir. Ma'am. Okay, so that said, what I'd like to do is move on to item 2B and open up a public hearing at 6:06 PM. And you do not have to have signed up. If you have any questions, comments, statements you would like to make during our public hearing, please come on up and speak. And don't run into each other on the way up. Okay. Records show there are a couple of people. We have a couple of people, and it looks like that nobody wants to speak. So I will be closing the public hearing, trying to wait for it to click over. So remember, this is item number 5A2, the public hearing that was opened at 6:06. And we are going to close the public hearing, going once, twice, 3 times at 6:07. How about that? All right, public hearing's closed. Moving on to item 5A3. The next part of this is to announce when the next opportunity and the final opportunity for comments from the public. The next opportunity will be on Monday, August 26th. That's next Monday at 6 PM in here. It's our second public hearing. And then the next one's going to be at the next regular city council meeting, September 4th. And that will be the opportunity for council to then adopt the 2019 property tax rate of 0.321106. That closes out item 5A overall. Moving on to the second item, 5B. Okay, item 5B, we added this on here and sent you the letter. This is an issue with Garden Ridge Elementary School starting up and asking for some exceptions to ordinance 22072019. Recall that is the ordinance that contains the requirement that, or the prohibition of anybody crossing Municipal Parkway on foot between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. Excuse me, during to prevent any pedestrians from being hit by the traffic bringing people into school. That was something that y'all spent a lot of time with, put a lot of thought into, and that is punishable by a not to exceed $500 for a violation. And what we have is a letter that was sent to the city administrator. You were given a copy of it in your package, and it's up on the screen now. The school is asking for sometimes to have an exception to the ordinance. We received this. I don't have a mouse. The date of this was August 4th when it was sent to our city administrator. The thing that's important about this is it was obviously after we had our city council meeting, so you couldn't even consider this at the city council meeting. That then, if it wasn't for this being the opportunity to have some special sessions, we would have had to explain to them that it couldn't be done. You see that what they're asking for, and I'll get into this a little bit more in a second, but what they're asking for is, in essence, the first week of school. They itemize it and say the 27th and the first day of school, and then the week of the rest of it. It's 28, 29, and 30. So they're asking for every day to allow people to park in the parking lot on our side and be able to walk across because of they know that it's going to be a lot higher volume than normal. And then they're also asking for Friday, November 8th, they're going to have a Veterans Day ceremony. The letter was in the package. It's coming to you all, very simply, because any ordinance in the city, the only body that can take any action on an ordinance is council. So the city administrator received this letter. She doesn't have any authority to do anything about it. And I, as a mayor, have no authority to do anything about it. You're the only ones that do. Keep in mind that we would have written back and said, we can't do it, because we wouldn't ask you to come in here on a special session because they didn't plan far enough advance. But since we happen to be have a special session right now, we figured we could put it in and give you the opportunity to consider. So I would tell you that you can approve any one of these days, all of these days, or none of these days. It's all up to you. You can also impose any reasonable restrictions you would like to on one of these days, any of these days, or all of these days. You could say that they have to have extra people out there, whatever you want to do. And what I would like to do is whatever you decide, we'll put in a letter. I'll sign it on behalf of the council to tell them what you have granted them by way of any partial or full exemption for these requests. If we do write them a letter, regardless of how much you give them, I would like to put in a letter and ask for you to approve that we put in a letter to remind them that if they ever need anything like this again, they need to do it 45 days in advance. Very simply, 45 days, because even if they did it 30 days, they could do it like they did this very one, and it would miss out on them being able to get the request, us being able to get the request to the only body that can do anything about it, y'all, at a council meeting. So 45 days means we at least have a week or so, if we get it, to be able to get it on a council agenda prior to when they need it. And I think they need to understand how extraordinary this particular situation is and how they need to plan. Now, I recognize they probably didn't realize when the first day of school was until about a month ago, but okay, I'm being a smart aleck there. The point is they need to plan. They need to plan ahead of time. And there was a deliberate reason why you all passed this ordinance. They know that, but so it's up to you on how much you want the city to work with them. So that's laying it out for you, and for you to take any action that you so desire. But I thought it would be useful to go ahead and have a discussion. You know, strictly speaking, I could just ask for a motion and then discussion off the motion. But I'm going to go ahead and start over on the right side and get any thoughts on this and anything you'd like to share with your fellow council members, starting on the right side, sir.
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing this for the school, showing them cooperation, and even though it is short time. However, when I drive by there, and glad I'm not turning in Municipal Parkway between the hours of 7 and 8, there's a lot of traffic, and there's going to be even more as, you know, you got new kids coming in and so on and so forth. I don't have a problem with this, but one thing I would like to see would be a crossing guard, 2 of them. One on the crosswalk as they come in that lane, those 2 lanes, and then one on the other side covering those 2 lanes so they can coordinate, because you're going to have 4 lanes of traffic going through there. One won't cut it. So either 2 crossing guards, or if they can be, I don't care if they're, and this would be for your input actually, 2 teachers with vests, orange vests, at least looking official and coordinating the traffic for people, you know, stopping it where they cross. I would go for that.
Okay, sir, thank you. Before I go any further, I just want to check with the chief. Is that acceptable to have a teacher with a vest, or does it need to be law enforcement doing it? Is there any requirement that council should know about?
Technically, by law, you can't do that unless you're a certified crossing guard or police officer, by law. But by variance, if you're waiving the variance and making an amendment to the variance, you could also do that as well. I know we used to allow that. It was a teacher that did the school crossing when it was one lane each way. And I really don't think it'd be a big issue having two teachers and with the vest so that people can be seen. I don't think we'd have a problem with that, short term.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, next.
My question was, just got covered by the chief. It was, what would he recommend that we have over there for the temporary dates they've suggested? I don't have a problem approving those dates. I did have one question on Mrs. Schultz's letter. I know Joe McKenna, her CCs, I know Joe McKenna, he's the director of safety for Comal ISD. Do we know who Steve Stanford is? I'm just curious, just who she CC'd on these?
I don't know. Who knows?
Steve Stanford's the Chief of Communications for
Okay.
Comal ISD.
Okay.
Anything else, ma'am? Sir?
See if I can remember how to turn this on. I've been gone so long. Let's see, Meet the Teacher Night, is that the night that we have a court here?
It is.
Okay, what are your recommendations, Nancy, or Chief, or whatever, for parking for court out here and accommodating what they need?
There will be limited parking here in our parking lot because we do need to assure that people that are scheduled for court have a place to park and come in
Right.
and staff working. The PD is going to monitor that.
Okay, all right.
And if I can add to that, the reason why that's not on the agenda for that particular item is because that does not require council to give an exception to the ordinance. It's more of, we don't let them park in our parking lot now. And it's very important that there are certain conditions where we have to ensure there's parking when there's voting, when there's court. And so we actually, staff have already discussed this, and will ensure that we only open up a few of the lanes to them to park, and the rest, we need to ensure anybody that comes to court can park. So it's a good question, but it wasn't on that part. Yeah.
The only other thing would be to kind of parallel what everybody else has said. The school, at their expense, fully staffed for crossing guards and whatever's appropriate. But I don't think it should be our police department's responsibility to go out there and direct traffic or allow people to cross. School's responsibility. That's it.
Fair enough, thank you. Sir?
I think we've covered it all. Crossing guards, and let's make it work. That first day of school is a mess, and if you didn't notice, they've added 2 more portables out there, so there's going to be probably 900 kids showing up on Tuesday of next week to go to that school. It's going to be bad.
Ma'am?
Just one question. I assume, as before, there's nothing we can do about parking on 3009, because that is just so risky. Yeah,
No, ma'am, there's nothing we can do about that.
yeah. I wonder if Ms. Schultz is aware, because she's new, isn't she? Is she new this year, or was she new last year?
No.
Okay.
She's been
So
here. She's been around long enough. She knows what's going on. We've had these discussions with her.
Okay, essentially the same thing. My concern was what the chief's opinion on it, and the fact that, yeah, I appreciate what was said, Ms. Kane said about letting Ms. Schultz know about, deadlines and letting us know a little further ahead of time. Makes me wonder if there's anything in the future that we need to, any of our ordinance that also might, it's just something for future consideration. Maybe are there any other of our ordinances that, I can't think of any right now, that would impact the school, and maybe they need to be aware, they need to comply a little sooner, not just focus on this one, since this is new anyway.
Good question, and if any of you know of any, please bring it up to staff and we'll take a look at it. Anything else, ma'am? Okay, one thing we can't discuss it, but I will tell you that I had, excuse me, I had a meeting last week with TxDOT that has some bearing, not on first day of school, not on any of these days other than possibly November, but has a bearing on school and all of the issues with traffic that will be on the agenda in the September council meeting, that I will give you all the details. But again, it's not on this agenda, so I can't talk about it. So that said, you've heard what everybody thinks, and now I need to get a motion. I'd ask you if you give a motion and from what you all have said, you need to use the word exception, because that's what we're doing here, is an exception to the ordinance. And please stipulate if you agree with a letter being written and then signed by me on your behalf and all that. So I'll leave it up to council on if you want to do a motion.
I move to approve the exception/variance to ordinance 22-072019 to allow the school for this year only to have pedestrian crosswalk availability on the specified days, not to surpass Friday, November 8th, and that they be made aware that this is in fact an exception or may be considered a variance to our ordinance.
Okay, vernacular-wise, it's actually the legal.
Exception.
It's an exception,
Right.
not a variance. The
Okay.
other part of this is that it was discussed about the crossing guards and all that. Do you want to have that as part of it?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, and I would request that the school be responsible for providing at least 2 teachers, official teachers, in vests on every day that they've requested our cooperation.
Okay, so I have a motion to provide the exception for the days that are in the letter, and only the days that are in the letter, to allow the crossing during those days and those times. The school will provide 2 teachers in vests for crossing and safety, and to also emphasize in the letter that this is an exception and that we'll explain why and what they need to do in the future. Can I get a second?
Second.
So I have a motion from place 5 and a second from place 1. Any further discussion or questions?
I just have one comment. Even though the city will not be providing any law enforcement or anything like that, if it's possible, it might be a good idea to have one of our officers to be there just the first day to possibly give some tips and say, be careful of this, be careful of that. That's the only thing I would say, although it doesn't have anything to do with the resolution.
Fair enough. Any other comments or questions on the motion?
Or they can hire a Bear County deputy to come out and help them direct traffic and crossing.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
We think we should clarify that the motion is to say, I said no less than 2 teachers, so
Yes.
if you want to accommodate.
Well, that,
Supplement.
he's not modifying your motion.
No,
He's
no,
just
I know,
giving
but I didn't
he's
hear
giving
you
a
say,
comment.
I didn't hear you say minimum. Thank you.
Okay. Minimum, yes, ma'am. Any other comments or questions? Okay, again, place 5 with the motion, place 1 with the second for an exception for these dates, these times, to be able to allow pedestrian crossing with the school providing a minimum of 2 teachers in vests, and to communicate this in a letter to also explain that this is an exception and the conditions for if they were to need this again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item number 6, citizens' comments. Don't have to have signed up. Come on up. No, you got to come up. Sorry. You really do. You get on camera and you get on the record. So go to the podium, if you will, and push the button where the red mark is. There you go.
Hi, I'm Sharon
And
Morris.
if you would, there you go. Name and address, please.
Live at 9030 Sumac Cove. When you were talking about the teachers going out, having been a teacher myself, and having a daughter who is now a teacher in the North Side School District, when you're talking about the teachers going out on those days, I go, is there some way perhaps that the GR, our Citizens Police Academy could help out. Teachers are overwhelmed. And I know my daughter is really concerned because many of the districts have lost the additional aides that they've had in schools. And trying, as a music teacher, she has additional after-school duties and before-school duties. They have choir practice and they have violins. That's just hers, and I know others are tutoring. There are special needs students that require individual attention, and I'm just wondering if perhaps somehow we could assist in that rather than asking the teachers to be out there. I know in the past, schools have always been responsible for it, and I'm not that familiar with the Comal School District, but I'm thinking of the teachers, especially on that first day. Overwhelmed on trying to keep tabs on all their students, making sure that they are directed to the right cars, the right parents, the right adults. And it concerns me that you want to ask the teachers to take on another additional responsibility. I'm not saying that they're not qualified, and yes, in the past, you know, it always was someone within that was certified to do this. But
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Time's up. Thank you very much. Anyone else? There's only one other person to look at. Okay? Barring any further, we conclude with item number 6. Moving on to item number 7. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Place 4 with the motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second, the motion to adjourn.
Place 5 with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. We are adjourned at 6:27. Thank you very much.